I am Meg Carney, the founding director of the Solstice Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing program here at LaSalle University. Welcome to the fifth in a series of 8 readings taking place here in Auburndale, Massachusetts, as part of our summer 2024 residency, which launches the fall 24 semester. As we open this physical and virtual space, I would like to note that we acknowledge that the territory on which LaSalle University stands is that of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts people. LaSalle's campus is a place to honor and respect the history and continued efforts of the Native and Indigenous community leaders who make up Eastern Massachusetts and the surrounding region. This statement is one small step in acknowledging the history that brought us to reside on this land and to help us seek understanding of our place within that history. And now for tonight's reading. First up, our very own Quintin Collins, alum and assistant director of the Solstice MFA program, will read, and he will be introduced by graduate and graduate assistant Noah Shea. Next up, our special guest, Kevin Carey, who taught a class today on young adult fiction, but teaches or writes a little bit of everything, will be introduced by yours truly. Last up, we will have faculty member in fiction and creative nonfiction, Jose Angel Araguz, and he will be introduced by poetry student Eric Armstrong. So Noah, come on up.
The majority of you know Quintin, but if you are not familiar with Q or his work already, then you are in for a treat tonight. His poetry has been featured in several publications: Sidereel Magazine, Solstice Literary Magazine, Superstition Review, and Glass, a journal of poetry, to just name a few. He has 2 full-length collections: The Dandelion Speaks of Survival, a finalist for both the 2020 Alice James Award and the 2021 Sheila Margaret Motten Book Prize, and his second, Claim Tickets for Stolen People, which was awarded the Charles B. Wheeler Poetry Prize and was an honor book for the Black Caucus of the American Library Association's 2023 Best Poetry Literary Award. In addition to these prestigious awards, he has also been awarded the Pushcart Prize, the 2019 Atlantis Award from the Poets Billow, and has received multiple Best of the Net nominations. Was a finalist for the 2020 Redivider Beacon Street Prize. I could go on about Q's prowess as a writer, but the accolades I listed are already a testament to his incredible skill. The reading you are about to hear would save me the trouble of describing the profound meaning behind his words. But Q is also more than a writer. He's associate director and alum of this program, an educator, a leader, a husband, a devoted father to an adorable 4-year-old named Harper, and a friend. He's one of the most calm, collected people you will meet. And all the time I've known him, I've never once seen him panic or lose his temper, even in instances where doing so would be justifiable. If he ever gets stressed, he doesn't show it. And I think we should all appreciate how much Q dedicates to ensure that this program runs smoothly. He lugs heavy boxes full of residency materials between the storage spaces and the dorms in 90-degree heat and 90% humidity for us. He resolves technical glitches, scheduling issues, last-minute replacements without complaint. He braves being stalked by shadow people, attacked by demonic birds, and assaulted by beetles the size of a fist. He is not only a man of profound intelligence and humor, but also of profound empathy and kindness. And it is not always the case that these qualities go hand in hand in a single person. In short, Quintin is a true mensch. I'm proud to know him. I'm lucky to have learned from him, but most of all, I'm blessed to call him my friend. Please join me in welcoming to the mic, Quintin Collins.
Left toes pointed on the 29th board. My father bucks into his step. He floats. He cranks his bowling ball backward. He's a pendulum that pushes toward the foul line. With his other arm open for balance, he bounds like a Boeing 737 as it skips off a runway. His storm-torrent races forward. He flicks his wrist. So the ball spins and rips from his fingertips. He touches the sky with an index finger cocked at the ceiling and then sweeps his right leg to the left. Then he freezes, fixed like the distorting Greek, and I marvel at the marvel of this man, this composure, as he kisses chaos down the lane. It glides on the oil-glossed maple, makes its way to crush the pins into a cackle. He holds his posture. As the ball pinpoints the pocket, pops every pin, and a party of clatter. I love this noise. How the crackle claps my ears with every strike. I want to be this cool. The way he poses until every pin's clipped into the back of the lane. After the last fallen pin gurgles, after the gate sweeps the gore from the grain, he breaks his stance, steps back like he slung a stone into the mouth of God. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Noah, for that awesome introduction. It's like people singing happy birthday to you, and like you have to like figure out what to do with your face every time, but I really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here in person and on the live stream. That first one goes out to Jason, because Jason loves that poem and I love reading it for Jason whenever I can. So I'm going to do a mix of things from Dandelion Speaks of Survival and then Claim Tickets for Stolen People, and then I'll get out your way. So this next poem, we're going to keep with the sports theme here because I am terribly athletic in some life.
You lift heavy boxes for those. Fun.
Yeah, I did. And my knees did okay. So this next poem is called Advantage Out. So in high school, I actually did play tennis for 3 of my 4 years. And so Advantage Out for those who like tennis terms. No man's land, or the abyss between baseline and service line, or the span between school and home, or the stretch of street where an Impala creeps in front of you as you walk home from the tennis match. Racket handle gripped, you get ready to crack skulls with the forehand, a volley across the face of any fool who fucks with you. You have it laid out like an overhead. They don't know you're pissed off from a loss to a white boy who gloated throughout the game, slung his private education around the court. Truthfully, your team sucks. It's only love between you black boys in your rimless courts, but at least once a match, you serve up an ace or break ankles with a drop shot, or you make that proud white boy dance and then dive to the ground because he kept talking shit. You still lost. You still shook his hand. You wanted to backhand the arrogance out of his mouth. You didn't follow through with aggression. You gathered your gear. You walked home. You made a foot fault. Stepped on the line of sight of the wrong people, advantage out, and they are up by 5, all packed in the Impala. One steps out, says, "Niggas play tennis now?" He serves you a punch to the side of the head. You want to slice upside his face, but you play a singles game. And they might have a knife or a gun in the car. He walks back, says, "Arthur Ashy nigga." You stand still like you let a second serve sail past you. All right. So this next poem is a little lighter than that, content-wise. So this is called Making Kool-Aid. So the big history for me in terms of the stereotype about Black folk and Kool-Aid is my father worked at a factory where they manufacture Kool-Aid for a long time. So we had a lot of stuff that people just couldn't get for like weeks. And that was awesome because there was also like a illegal like trade of like Kool-Aid in grade school. I know a lot of people, that's pretty common for millennials across all backgrounds. But when you're like the kid whose dad works at the place where they make it, get a bit of a step up. So this is called Making Kool-Aid. My daddy early mornings home from work, his uniform cherry dusted, tropical punch powdered. Charkleberry fin shade stained navy blue fabric with craft food stitched on the breast. I thought his job was to make Kool-Aid. And I wasn't wrong. Spoon stirred in sugar water. Water spout spun in the pitcher, sweet grains swam in the mixture, pitcher bottom congregations of sugar when waves settled. We poured a glass and a glass and a glass and a glass and a glass of pineapple, black cherry, lemon lime, lemonade, orange. Pitcher empty, we mixed another batch. Water swirled colors like washing machine drainage when mama washed daddy's uniforms. Sweet rainbow spun flavors. Kool-Aid packet lip ripped open, we emptied powder into pitchers or palms on playgrounds. After truce and dares, we slurped the spit in powder slurries, index fingers sticky stained, tongues and gums glossed in grape, strawberry kiwi, watermelon. Little pushers. We peddle packets from pockets, a quarter apiece. 2 quarters for sugar to cut the sour. Ziplocs with multicolored mixtures, quarters clicked in my palms. I made Kool-Aid. Commodity profits while my father peeled off into sleep after he worked a 3rd shift, ensuring conveyor belts kept the drink mix moving. Kool-Aid packets pushed from factory floor to pitcher to another glass, sugar speckled after we swallowed the last drop. All right, so one more from Dandelion. And this is called Editor's Note on Code Switching. So for those who don't know, I used to work in a marketing company for nearly 6 years before I came here, and I was managing editor by the time I left. And I was the editor that everyone did not like for how thorough I was, although they respected it. So this is Editor's Note on Code Switching. Red pen ready. I lasso errant modifiers, enforce the lexicon of the uncommon folk. Child of the common tongue, I coerce commas to correction with comments. I erase all errors in copy, mismatch antecedents, scared of my keystrokes. I cut very, really, both, and their comrades in the concision rebellion. I rebuff, in order to, break meandered syntax into well-behaved airs of Hemingway. With active verbs as my vocation, I strike passive voice, banish participles on principle. The faithful editor, I bow before grammar, a bounty of carrots my offering to this god. In its name, manual of style spread on the desk, I cross off disobedient dashes, insert semicolons to consecrate clauses. But when the workday concludes, I transpose my speech, spill every ain't and M, loosen my talk, unwind words. I learn from grown folks' gossip. My grandmother gifted nigga please to my ears. Phrases created on the playground, mispronunciations from my blue collar kin and friends. I am a child of the common tongue. The talk they teach you to tuck, I move between the master's tools and to speak my cousin's spit. Saturday night, chicken grease slick. Sunday morning, hymnal crisp. All right. Now getting into claim tickets. So this first poem is called Reynolds Wrap Leftovers, and I'm going to read this for Lisa and Becca. Thank you so much for being here. It's so awesome to see you in person. There we go. Or not, there we go. There we go. All right. Reynolds Wrap Leftovers. Casserole, dish, room temp memory, half-eaten aluminum. I clatter off the roll, crackle over leftover meals, peaks, valleys, crinkles. Him smoothed over the Pyrex serving pan, lipped, baked macaroni or peach cobbler. Cobbled armor, jagged ridges, lunchbox sandwich, sheets, shimmer, sheets spun round cardboard swords for Halloween Tin Man trapping, chrome, sphere, cocked, back, arc, free throw, basketball, trash, cookie, crumb, collateral damage, I pull too much. Try to rewind it around the roll, now wrinkled again, sheet zippered against sharp waves. ripped like skin when a thumb nicks the cutter, uneven tear, extra shrapnel, fistfuls, fragment, carnage, clutter, loose scraps, kitchen drawer, stuffed, save a morsel, rough edge, like an old Bulliver watch, retirement gift from my grandfather's years at the Reynolds Metals Company. The McCook plant engraved on the case, his grave, the gun salute. My uncle places the watch in my palm so I can save a piece of his father for later. All right. So three more, and then I'll let you all stop listening to me talk.
Never.
Never? Don't say that. Do not say that. As Noah will attest, I can talk forever sometimes. All right, so this next poem is called Delayed MBTA Train Home as Jimi Hendrix Stratocaster. Yeah, this is for everybody who hates the T. Third rail hums electric, a rumble in the concrete throat. Train a stop away, delayed for 11 minutes. Makes me want to get up and scream, tired feet and all. Sleep heavy head nods after crosstown traffic navigation to Park Street after long work day. The next train to shoes off, clothes off, mind off is now approaching. Train cars growing around the bend, then rasp while Jimmy's purple haze riffs in my headphones. 10 red striped cars thunder the platform, steel glass blur slingshot all along the rails. A screech rips the station as the train slows to a halt in my ear canal. Metal on metal grind as Jimmy engraves his initials. All right, so this next poem is one that, like, I realize I just don't read a lot ever. So maybe this is the first time I've read this poem in public. And it was definitely one of the hardest ones to get right in the book. And it was one of the earliest ones I had written. So this is a poem called Passage. And so this will be the second to last, and then I'll conclude with the poem immediately next to it. We are bodies against bodies, sweat pearled skin. We cargo of rush hour stowed in this train, rock in an ocean of cough, hot breath. I don't complain out loud. Hurricane and crowd at Arlington, rain slicked umbrellas. We jostle, we jockey for space. We just want to get home, to reclaim air around our noses. How can that man cry in a place like this? He bears his ruin like wreckage at sea. What if at Copley I take his hand, wipe the red from his eyes? What if we leap over the threshold and onto the platform to drown in waves of Com Ave brownstones? What do I know of such freedom? All right. So, thank you. I'm going to end with a poem I haven't read in a while, but I like reading, and I'm going to hope you all enjoy it too. So this is called Samuel L. Jackson's Motherfucker. So context on this poem is there's this often shared interview about how he used to have a stutter, and the way he got over that was by using foul language to work through it. And I thought that was very inspiring. And of course, like, if anybody is going to own that word for all of time, it's probably going to be Samuel L. Jackson. And thank you all again for coming, for listening. I love you all. You all have been so awesome this residency. And yeah, I appreciate you. We motherfucker like every syllable riddles flesh with a new opening. We motherfucker with the fury of mothers who would slap the brown off our skin if they heard us utter. Slap our speech to stutter. We motherfucker again with friends to free our speak. Unleash phonemes garbled in our teeth. We motherfucker at school. We motherfucker in the streets. We motherfucker when the DJ lays down the beat. We motherfucker when we won't lay down the beef, or simply because we need more punctuation to tell you motherfuckers we don't need to double speak. Yes, we know English, motherfucker, all the ways air erupts from our throats for scholarly quotes and polite conversation. But what we're saying, motherfucker, is when God gave us a bounty of words, we made a meal of fricatives, nasals, and plosives so we could flick explosions off our tongues every time we shout, motherfucker. Our grandmothers ate chitlins. What makes you think we can't recondition expletives for all modes of expression? Motherfucker, we eat everything and regurgitate gold from our innards when we cuss. Trust, motherfuckers. Thank you.
You're so good, Q. Kevin Carey is a novelist, poet, screenwriter, self-described fry cook, and coordinator of the creative writing program at Salem State University. His published works include the middle grade novel Junior Miles and the Junkman, and the co-written collection of poems Olympus Heights, both published in 2023. A chapbook of fiction titled The Beach People, 3 books of poetry, The 115 to Penn Station, Jesus Was a Homeboy, and Set in Stone, and a crime novel titled Murder in the Marsh. His one-act plays have been staged at the New Works Festival in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and the New Hampshire Theater Project. His co-written Peter's Song won Best Screenplay at the 2009 New Hampshire Film Festival and Best Drama at the Woods Hole Film Festival here in Massachusetts. Kevin's full-length play, The Stand, or Sal is Dead, premiered at the Actors Studio in Newburyport in 2018. Kevin is also a documentary filmmaker. His latest co-produced film, Unburying Malcolm Miller, premiered at the Mass Poetry Festival in 2017. He was just telling us about a film he was just shooting about murder in a failing MFA program because it's a terminal degree. So he's going to be editing that film, and we're going to try to get him to bring it here when it's ready. So we have to see that, Kevin. Kevin's short fiction can be found in several literary journals, including his short story, Home for the Holidays, which appeared in the spring 2011 issue of the Apple Valley Review and was included in the Best of the Net anthology and selected as one of the Story South Million Writers Top 10 Online Stories of 2011. Kevin is also co-founder of Molecule, a tiny lit magazine. No matter what the genre, Kevin has established himself as a Boston area artist, exploring its gritty bars, restaurants, and gyms, along with the Tobin Bridge and the urban beachfront of Revere. The breadth of his work is beyond admirable, with its lyrics and elegies, its satires and moving narratives embedded with humor, insight, toughness, and vulnerability. That he would tackle the challenge of writing a middle grade novel and doing it extremely well is no surprise. That said, Junior Miles and the Junkman is truly a crossover book in that it speaks to readers of all ages. And like the rest of Kevin's work, it speaks of, to quote Junior, the real world, where bullies picked on kids who were different, where kids lived in junkyards, where fathers died. Kevin credits the kinetic works of Steve Gerberich, an artist who finds new and unique uses for everyday items in his moving sculptures as inspiration for his novel. Although the story is partly a work of science fiction, the suspension of disbelief comes easily as the reader is swept up in Junior's grief, challenges on and off the playground, and his great adventure to discover the mysteries posed by a man made of discarded parts that was created just for him by his dying father. And along with that, discover the transcendent power of love and the ability to see the beauty in what others throw away. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Kevin Carey. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Well, first, Meg, thank you. I'm blushing from that. Thank you, Quintin and Meg, for inviting me here today. And I'm sorry I left my first book of poetry home because it has a motherfucker poem in it. But you won't get to hear it. I'm going to read you two poems and an excerpt from Junior Miles. And when I go into the schools with this novel, Junior Miles, it's funny you read that other poem too about stuttering, because I was a stutterer when I was a kid. And I used to hate having to read out loud in class. It was terrifying. And then I started playing basketball and I got pretty good at it. And it seemed to go away. So I tell this to kids before I start reading the Junkman. I don't know why. It just seems like things can change, things that are holding you down can get different. And so I usually start the readings to them with this poem from Jesus Was a Homeboy. Getting it right. In grammar school, I stuttered, felt the hot panic on my face when my turn to read crept up the row. Even when I counted the paragraphs and memorized the passage, I'd trip on the first or second word, and then it would be over. The awful hesitation, the word clinging to the lining of my throat, rising only too late to avoid the laughter around me. I was never the smartest kid in the room, but I had answers I knew were right, yet was afraid to say them. Years later, it all came out. Flowing sentences I practiced over and over, Shakespeare or Frost, my own tall tales in low-lit bar rooms, scribbled in black-bound journals, rehearsing, anticipating my turn, my time, a way of finally getting it right. Wow. So as Meg alluded to, this novel was born out of seeing an exhibit called Spring Sprockets and Pulleys by the artist Steve Gerberich, which is a bunch of kinetic junk man, woman-sized figures that move and connected on pulleys. It's really amazing. But I saw it and my kids were young then, and it's one of the figures in the corner of the room just kept looking at it, started thinking of a story, and then I saw it 2 years later, ran into the exhibit again. It was like the idea was following me around. So after many agents and much trials, the book came to light in publication last September, which has really pleased me. So I'm going to read you some of this. Chapter 1. I was born with 1 foot pointing west and 1 foot pointing north. The doctors tried to fix the west pointing one with a big ugly shoe that was 2 inches off the ground and weighed 3 pounds. By the middle of the day in kindergarten, I'd be dragging that foot behind me like a heavy hunk of coal. The kids called me Frankenstein, even after my father let me throw the big black shoe away because I still limped and dragged my foot when I got tired. Mama said I got rid of it too soon, but my father knew I was feeling like I was never going to fit in. He'll be teased forever with that thing, he told her. When will I walk like normal kids? I asked my father one day. He put down his newspaper, then leaned toward me like he always did with that twinkle in his eye and said, "And what makes us normal, Junior?" His eyes drifted down toward my foot. "It ain't our feet." He looked back up. "Normal isn't a set of rules or what we look like. Be your own normal," he said, and went back to reading his newspaper. I wish that someday I'd be able to see myself the way he saw me. When we moved a mile down the road from the small white trailer on Riverside and into the double wide trailer on the grounds of my father's junkyard, the kids had at me about that too. You couldn't get any lower than living on Riverside. Half the houses had been boarded up since the factories closed, and the river that ran behind Broadway smelled like rotten eggs. Leave it to my father to find a way to set us even further down the social ladder. "Why'd we have to move here?" I asked him. "Opportunity," he said, smiling like he'd inherited a gold mine. Mama nodded, agreeing with me. Why, she said. My father was the proud owner of 40 acres of contaminated rock-filled soil, covered by every imaginable piece of junk known to mankind, all piled in sections to the sky like giant metal teepees. Piles of rubber tires, auto parts, construction waste, copper and cast iron, railroad ties, telephone poles dropped off by the city, and lines of wrecked car bodies, some piled on top of each other like building blocks, and none of it went anywhere. He was always trying to pull me into his world of junk, promising me a part in his magical transformation dream. Truth was, as much as my father liked wheeling the junk around and crushing it, he liked sculpting it even better. Most of his time was spent in a little tin and wood shed about 100 yards from the trailer, back through the maze of piled junk like a log cabin in the mountains. That's usually where I'd find him, all hours of the day, fastening pieces together with metal cement or a torch, turning junk into figures of animals, people, cars, and sometimes globs of unrecognizable metal. One Christmas, he made a 3-foot Santa Claus out of wire coat hangers and crushed soup cans and hung it on the front door. Mama kissed him right there on the steps. He was always coming home with something for us. Pulling one of his creations from behind his back, a tiny angel made of tin strips and bottle caps, a bracelet of polished machine washers, or some perforated aluminum shaped into a foot-high Eiffel Tower. He'd hand a new creation to Mama, "For you, darling, a junkyard special." He'd say, and she'd smile like it was some kind of diamond necklace. And believe me, when she smiled like that, not with just the corners of her mouth, but with her dark eyes sparkling, it made the whole world feel lucky for bitch being alive. I knew how she felt when he gave me something still warm from the torch, a porcupine made of 10-penny nails or a tiny strip cut out of a sardine can. I'd get all warm inside, like he was passing me magic itself. I knew it was just junk, but it was the way he could make anything into something else. Like how he could make bad days at school, which were most days, into good nights at home. "God doesn't make junk, Junior," he said to me often. "Everyone has a purpose, and when you find yours, you'll be worth $1 million. I always believed what my father told me. Never once in 12 years did I ever have a reason not to believe him. Not even when that masher and the crane sat quiet and the yard did nothing but pile up more junk. I believed him when he flipped pancakes one at a time on our little stove, pointing the spatula at me and saying, "These will put meat on your bones." I believed him when he told me driving in a junkyard, but only in a junkyard, was legal for 12-year-olds, while he would fasten wooden blocks on the gas and brake pedal of the old truck and let me drive back and forth from the shed. I believed him when he told me I was destined for wild adventure, or when he was soothing the wounds of another day at school with his promises of great things for me. I believed him when he held my face in his rough hands, telling me that he'd always be there for me. But the day he told me he had cancer and that he was going to die, I called him a liar and ran into the junkyard where I stayed until Mama found me in the back of a beat-up old Chevy van. I had been crying for hours. It was hard to hold in the shakes. But soon hard became harder, watching my father each day transform into a shell of himself. He stopped cooking breakfast in the morning and was too tired to even talk. Mama said the medicine made him sleepy, but it seemed to me that his life had up and gone away before his body decided it was time. And even though I wanted to tell my father about the horrible days at school, dealing with the bullies and the nicknames, I couldn't. I wondered what I was going to do if he was really gone. And then a strange thing happened. One morning, my father jumped out of bed. I got something to do, he said. And without changing into work clothes, he headed out to the shed and stayed there all day and all night. The next morning, before I left for school, I could hear him banging and the torch going when I snuck by for a listen. And for the next 7 days, he holed up inside that shed, coming out only at night to sleep. I couldn't see what he was working on because he locked the door with a padlock and kept the key on the string around his neck. And then I guess he finished. He came in earlier than the other nights and lay down on the couch in the back and went to sleep for the last time. I never thought it possible for a heart, my heart, and probably Mama's, to break into so many pieces. A week later, after the funeral, Mama handed me an envelope my father had written my name on. Junior Perfect Miles. A tear dropped from her eye as she passed it to me, one shiny wet line on her brown cheek. And as much as I wanted to rip it open, I couldn't. So I tucked it under my mattress. I'm going to read you one more poem. It's called The Dream in Newark for Bella. We have just stepped off an elevator. I know, always an elevator, right? And I'm standing frightened with my hands pressed against the stone wall of a towering cathedral. And I'm looking out at a quartered courtyard, lush and flowering. And I see to my left my infant son, diaper and all, moving along the ledge. I'm reaching for him as I struggle to hold on. And just when I feel like I can't balance anymore, we are riding the elevator down, him safely cooing in my arms. I have the dream so often I get comfortable with it, like knowing the ending to a horror movie. Don't worry, he lives. But it's not this dream or the one about my dead mother singing at the kitchen sink that haunts me. It's the other recurring dream, the one my father had after World War II, a home, a job, a family. The one the shuttle driver in Newark at the Dodge Poetry Festival talks about. He tells me now that he's home from Iraq, he doesn't trust the military anymore. The road to the dream, I think. He agrees with me about the illusion of truth, no matter which party is handing it out. He's happy not to be carrying a rifle in the desert, happy to be home with his kid, but I can tell the dream that haunts him is the same one a lot of returning vets have, the one he can't grab no matter how often he reaches for it. My father was lucky. He got his. Bartended his way to owning a piece of a restaurant, had a state job, helped me get a peace of mind. I look out the shuttle window, police on every corner, beefed up patrols for the poetry festival. I know that Newark, once a center for tanning and dye work, has a hard luck reputation. I've heard that Down Neck on the bend of the Passaic River is a safe place for dreams, but maybe not Lower Roseville or South Broad Street after dark. I want to tell the driver to hang in there, no matter where he lives, that dreams come true in Newark too, but I don't. Dreaming is easy. It's waking up that's hard. Thank you.
Dang, what a reading, right? Let's give them both another round of applause. Familia, family, a word that represents those close to you, ostensibly by blood, but also those special people who earn the honorific. Grandma, Lola, Pops, Mama, Bro, Sister, Tio, Auntie, Cousin. This is Dr. Jose Angel Araguz, our next reader tonight. He is family. When I see him, I have to fight the urge to say, "What up, cuz?" and honor him with a hand slap and a back flap to let him know that I am happy to be among family. But that isn't proper. One shouldn't talk to their professors like that, right? Especially one as accomplished as he, author of the recently published lyrical memoir, Ruin and Want, author of poetry collections like Rokuta and Empty Pot's Darkness, Until We Are Level Again, and more. Not to mention his several chapbooks, many individual poems, flash fiction pieces, and more. He's a Canto Mundo Fellow, editor-in-chief of Salamander Literary Magazine, associate professor at Suffolk University, and last and certainly best, faculty member here at the Solstice Low Residency MFA program. Right. His work addresses a broad range of themes, including identity, race, family, borderlands, trauma, sexuality, and more. Jose also presses against the borders that surround us, just as he works to press against the limitations of genre. It may not be proper to call Dr. Araguz cuz, but Jose makes himself family. He is that wise and tender uncle, that older brother who shows you the way, that favorite cousin who reflects your potential. His gentle and insightful voice moves the lyricism of his writing, as well as the talents of his students. He sees students for who we are and meets us where we are, all while finding a way to push our boundaries, and make consistently spot-on reading suggestions. In short, Jose is with his students as he is with his poems, open to that spark. And what can we do but gladly catch fire? Even though he can't be with us in person, please help me welcome home Dr. Jose Angel Araguz.
There I am. First off, Eric, thank you for that lovely intro. It meant a lot. Familia, it's all good. And I don't know if I'm all that good stuff you said, but I will try to live up to it, my friend. I hope you're doing well. I hope everyone's doing well with the residency. Real quick, I want to say thank you to Amo, Kathy, Meg, and everyone helping pitch in during this time with everything that's going on my end. But yeah, I've got some things to read to y'all. Since I taught a class on triptychs and episodic prose narratives earlier this week, I thought it only fair to share some of my own. So I went through all my books and I found that I found 5 triptychs that I'm going to share. I'll start off with a nonfiction one, and then I'll read some poems. And I had one thing planned for the end that I can't do because I can't share my screen. My laptop died this week, so I'm on a little Chromebook. Wish me luck. But I've got something in the clutch to share, and actually, I'll introduce it better when I get there. But yeah, let's get into the triptychs. This first one is from my first full-length poetry collection, Everything We Think We Hear, in which I snuck in some flash creative nonfiction because why not, right? These are also high bun, so I'm all over the place. And if you've taken one of my classes, you know I genre is just a suggestion. White. See, this first one is called Birthdays, and what you need to know is that it's a direct address to a friend of mine who died in 2010. The poem is from 2014. And when you hear me say Annie, Annie's my partner, so they pop up in my poems here and there. This one is called Birthdays. Over breakfast, Annie reminds me it would be your birthday again today. I have been caught up in the smell of grass coming in from the window. The sharpness and warmth make me feel all this time before this moment. I have been a stone hurled in the air, now nearing the horizon, where from here on it won't be seen. Brass blades shift in the breeze, moving the steam off my cup. At lunch, I try to recall things I haven't yet told Annie about you. 4 years, and I haven't run out of words. What I do tell her about is people, those you would befriend and help out, scowl at, and mistake for someone else. Stories about cities you would have moved to if the time was right. The toys and books you collected, piled around your house. People waiting to hear from you, their pages and faces in place for later. Palm tree shadows on the stones of your uneven path. There is a side to the moon we never see. People are like that, I tell Annie, pointing to myself. Her birthday was last week. I spent most of the day trying to make her laugh by saying things like, "Your laughter is popcorn to my soul." The kind of things you say and hope the whole person hears them. What I wouldn't give to be able to reach and cup the side of the moon and turn it. When I imagine how it would go, I see a silver reflection of the hand I write with pull away before it all flickers out. Pen marks on this side of the page, on the other side, impressions. All right. Thank you all for that. I'm saying thank you as if on beat, like as if I can hear you clap, but I can't, and that's okay. We're rolling with it. The next 3 poems are from my second collection, Small Fires. It's a manuscript that had me engaging with different kind of like beats per line, but also family narratives involving poverty and domestic violence, which I say now because that's a content warning. This poem definitely goes into to describe it as domestic violence, and so I want to make sure to warn everyone about that. But yeah, these are from Small Fires, and this first one is called As Birds Do. I once saw a man in church kneel to look his son in the eye and tell him, "You have to be quiet now. God can hear you." His finger skyward in the direction of a crucifix. The boy's eyes, as if the cross were a just learned word, widened, as if making room, as if each time the broken body was seen anew, everything, this life, the life around it, was made new. After the fight, I cringe when I see another man. The bruise in the mirror I press my finger to is the size of a fist not raised, a blow not returned, of a door I drew once in a book, bearing down on my pen, thinking I could bring King Arthur back to help me do battle with a man beating my mother, her bruises, doors that never opened. I have had to study manhood like birds study the rain, have had to read the same sentence over as screams went on in other rooms, have gone around bruised saying, "Dogs get hit like I got hit." And I've been the only one to laugh, have let the seasons tell me where to live, but never how to get there, nor what to do during a storm. So very, very heavy book, that second book. A lot of my work is heavy, which is why I'm excited to read the stuff I have at the end. Maybe end on a different note. But we're here now, second book. This next poem is called The Name. If you were in my triptych class, you've heard this. You heard this one already. You're like, oh, no, I'm just playing. But I think the next two, I read in class just off the top of my, it just occurred to me at the end, we had a little time and I was like, wait, I should share triptych. So it was a good class. That's what I'm geeking out about. Anyway, this poem is called The Name, and it's dedicated to my grandfather, Pedro Araguz Aldape. And if you notice, his middle name is Araguz. And my mom's last name is Lopez. So like, yeah, it's like the shell game in terms of last names in Mexican families. So I somehow don't have the same last name as everyone else in my family. Go figure. It's not even my dad's last name. So anyway, this is called The Name. Asked where the name comes from, I grow quiet, and in another voice begin to tell how those ending in Z are more from the Moors who ruled Spain 800 years. Some agree right away, read into my black hair and dark skin what they wish to. I let the disguise of story take over, let it pass across the feeling in my chest that tells me I've lied, even when I haven't. A name is wind and ink. A name is memory. What does it matter? What does it matter my mother didn't want my father in my life, even in name, and reached out to her father for his? Who remembers that? And who can clearly tell it when Mexicans stack up last names like a trail of crumbs behind a person, syllables broken off a whole to meet and make another whole, a map of breath drawn over so one can't get lost. Eventually, everything gets lost. What does it matter? What does it matter? Letters and sounds hold, become a space where the long lost young man I am can look and catch a part of the old man my grandfather became. What does it matter except that I remain and have to face the name, have to explain it, give it meaning. The name, the house at the edge of a landfill, the hat held in his hands as we talked, the wind leaving behind a faceless and fleeting sound. Asked where the name comes from, I grow quiet. So I have to get, I feel like I was like kind of born kind of with the professor vibe, and I kind of hate it because I'm like, y'all, I have fun sometimes. He says. But one of the cool things about getting to prepare this reading for y'all and to see how I've engaged with these three-part pieces over the years, it's like sometimes it's an argument. Like the last one I read, the repetition for me meant a lot, like arguing with something I hadn't really, I still don't have full understanding of. And in this next one, it's more of a traditional one. There's like 3 little stories. So this one's called Blade. Was she flirting with me? This woman that claimed she only expected 3 things from men: to be strong, quiet, and to carry a blade. I tried to talk again about her homework. She said of all the men she'd ever met, I talked the most. My being paid to do so didn't factor in for her. When I asked if her son walked around with a blade, she asked if I had ever driven with my mother past a church. I knew what she was getting at: the passing of hand and words, the sign of the cross, the need to feel protected. A rosary or this, back pocket charm, heavy as a rock in my hand. A rosary or this, steel that unknuckles into lightning. Each at this hour with the gleam of moonlight and tears. Each in the hand tallies the night, the shadows gripped and turned over on each breath. Like a man refusing grace, I'm silent. Like a man who has found the whispers taught in childhood to be distracting, I focus, forget everything but the pressure of metal that never fully warms against my palm, and only trust a fist against the fisted world, my hand closed tonight around this cold piece. I've been told, never pull out your blade except to use it. If the other guy has made up his mind, you might as well throw your wallet at his feet. Me, I've opened boxes at work, cut roses for my girl, whittled off the thorns, even peeled an orange once. Each time I felt clumsy and wielded the thing like I would a woman's hand in high school, could never just grip, had to keep treading the creases, each line and bump called and recalled, unsure almost if what I felt was really there. Yeah, so again, spending time with these. The middle stanza of that last one makes me think I was really trying to be John Milton when I wrote this, and that was so weird, little Chicano John Milton. Um, I also owe a lot to Gary Soto in that poem, and I won't explain that right now. You can ask me that story later. So the next and last triptych that I'm going to read is from my latest poetry collection, Rotura, which is out from Black Lawrence Press in 2022. The poem's called American Studies, and I wrote it. It's one of those things you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to just go with the first draft, but I went with my first draft on this one, mainly because I was invited to contribute to Terrain.org's Letters to America series, specifically November 2016 when Trump got elected, and so yeah, everybody was. It was a cool invite, and I was like, you know what? Let me see what I can come up with. Well, what can I swing for the fences and all that? So it's in 3 parts, and at one point you're going to hear me quote a line, and the line is, "And maybe the mirror of the world can clear once again. And maybe the mirror of the world will clear once again." That's a line from a poet named Faiz Ahmad Faiz, who, and so in this poem, in the last stanza, I talked with a friend of mine, and she quotes this line to me, and it's from an actual conversation, and it made its way into the poem and into my consciousness, I suppose. All right, American Studies. My wife tells me of reading the Dear America books as a child, those stories told via the diaries of young women who lived during difficult times in American history. In these stories filled with suffering were the facts behind the suffering. Her favorite involved the RMS Titanic, the unsinkable ship that sank. I ask if trying to imagine what it looked like was what captivated, and she says no, says only one book led to another, until she realized she could never see it nor accept it. After the election, my friend explains he feels he could manage here, but not his children. He explains he spoke to their school director, who comforted by talking about police presence. But if there's police, he asks, before anything happens, what will happen when something does? American algebra. Everything is X until proven Y. Dear America, if X represents what my friend feels thinking about the police, what language do you imagine he worries his children speaking publicly? And what language are we speaking now? Show your work. Another friend writes, here is a verse I think about a lot. And maybe the mirror of the world will clear once again. She shares she has been sick since the election, as I've been. I imagine our voices trying to commiserate between coughs. In physics, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. What American physics happens here as I read and hear the voice behind the verse she sent? Are you, dear America, afraid as I am that our faces will no longer be there when the mirror clears? So what I had planned next, the closing that I had planned was to share about this erasure series. I was going to share my screen, but the Chromebook, I'm telling you the Chromebook, what's it called? Google's mad at me for not selling their product well. But yeah, it's not letting me share my screen, but I was going to share these erasures that I wrote up based on the transcripts from the recent presidential debate, during which the word border was used 38 times, mostly by Trump, but everybody's saying it. But you can check those out. I wasn't able to share my screen, but you can check those out on my blog, The Influence. You can just Google my name and you can find me. Or if you find me on Instagram as well, I share my erasures there as well. Instead, what I'm being forced to do is something I've never done, which is actually share with you share aloud some of these aphorisms that I write, which are somewhere between like creative nonfiction, some are feel like haiku, some read like prose poems or micro essays. Again, genre is just a suggestion. And you'll see what I mean in a sec. I'm going to share 2 short sequences. The first one is called On Touch. Touch is the first drug. There are rocks where I stand and grass. My bare feet ruminate. Touch, by far, is kinder to the soul than speech. Enter the ocean. Touch swarms. Each night, you close your eyes and fall into that touch of the first time the body slept before you learned to call it night. Absent-mindedly, I touch the lampshade. The shadows in the room shiver. Touching, letting go, returning to touch. We love with the persistence of flies. How fast these words, dear pencil, dear clutched one. What we do blurs at the touch, at the fragile turn of a second. Each night, you close your eyes, your eyelashes clash, your eyelids yearn and yearn to seal, but only touch. Lint trap of dreams, where everything collects onto a screen, a clouded dark that at the first touch falls apart. Not the paper, but the words are a skin. Not the ink, but reading is touch. I honestly feel like this is the best way for me to share these because I don't get to, if these are bombing, I don't hear that right away. I'm gonna get texts later, I'm sure. If this is bombing, do text me. But these are my aphorisms. This last sequence that I'm gonna read is from a project I'm calling Heartlines. So just in like the previous piece, you heard me just do different variations on ideas of touch. This is ideas of the heart. And one of the fun things about, I mean, these aphorisms are fun to write. I call them lyric aphorisms because why not? But one of the things is kind of finding how much is too much of a piece, right? That's always like, do I need all these parts? What can I chisel it down to? What is necessary? So I did some revising before this reading, and I imagine I'm not the only one who's done that this week because that's who we are. We're a community of writers, right? So just thank you again for being the community you are, Solstice. So this is excerpts from Heartlines. The heart is a muscle flexing with each second. Pure show, pure effort, this life. The heart is an ashtray where everything collects that I have let burn and crumble in my hands. The doctor takes a moment with the stethoscope across your chest, like writing in reverse, the hand called the word of the heart. Blood guides the heart, not in any direction, but in the only direction, on. A page where the impression of marks and words written on another page are seen. Not what was said, but the pressure of it became the color of my heart. The heart is a window on a summer night you do not know is open until you feel it. The heart is a pill too stubborn to dissolve. Sometimes the heart is like the smile you almost have when you see someone you think you recognize on the street, and you blurt out a name and stand half confident, half mixed up, regret and joy trying hard to elbow past each other to course through the lines of your mouth. And sometimes the heart is the face looking back with unremembering eyes, startled, handing back your silence. The heart moves like a bird about to sing. You touch my arm, and the toy teeth inside my chest, disguised as my heart, are set off chattering. All my life, I've never heard this shudder and jolt. My heart now is all motion and gnash, all kick and snap. A toy, but all bite. Strawberry, heart with all those eyes. Voices from another room, The heart works like that, muffled, going on with its own business. You can't make out the details, but you feel what is meant. My heart pounds and pounds, like anything else testing its usefulness. Hammer, fist at the door, rain against the sea. The heart is a pilot light. If it goes out, forget the unpaid bills, forget crossing the street, no fire. The heart moves like a pocket where someone works at finding the right coin. A woman stands in the park looking at the ground. When I make my way past her, she says aloud, "That's my name, but that's not about me." I turn and see her hand over her chest, as if afraid to let it fall. When I look at the ground, I see her name, but not her name, carved in concrete within a heart. Thank you.